Welcome to Challenger Deep, athletes rising above adversity, where we explore stories of athletes who faced their lowest points and risen to incredible heights. Did you know Challenger Deep is the lowest point in the ocean, making it the lowest point on Earth? When you're at your lowest, the beautiful truth is there's nowhere to go but up. We all face adversity, but how we choose to respond defines who we become. Join hosts Jeff Hagee and Tammy Matheny as we share powerful stories of everyday athletes' resilience, growth, and triumph. These stories will inspire you to rise above your challenges and reach new heights. Let's dive in.
All right. Excited to have everyone here with us today on Challenger Deep podcast. Extra special day for two reasons. First, today is our Challenger Deep birthday book, first birthday for the book. So we're excited that the book has been out there for a year now. And to help us celebrate that, we have an amazing guy that I am excited to get to know better myself, but really love what I already know about him. Today we have Pat O'Malley, and Pat has experience in baseball as a player, as a coach, helping get others recruited now, and so many more layers to that I know that he's going to dive into. He has his own podcast that does a lot of great stuff with mental health. And so I'm excited that he's going to share his story and that he's here with us today. So, Pat, welcome and tell us a little more about yourself.
Tammy and Jeff, I got to start by saying thank you. Anytime I can get in the room with some big names like you guys, it's flattering, it's honoring, it's an absolute blessing. So happy to be here. First and foremost, yes, I am Pat O'Malley, like Tammy said. I'm with NCSA and IMG Academy. I've been with NCSA and IMG for 7 years now. I'm a former college player. I'm a former college coach, and now I'm a mental health advocate as well. So super blessed to be here and excited for the conversation.
All right. Well, first question we're going to throw at you. What does adversity mean to you when you actually hear that word?
Yeah, I think it stems off of our podcast. Obviously, I'm a co-host of the Keep Going podcast, and adversity to me means when you're knocked down to your knees, when everything's down, when your back's against the wall, it's how you respond. And I believe the best athletes and the best coaches and quite frankly, the best professionals are the ones that can get through adversity and come out on the other side. So adversity to me means back against the wall, nowhere to go, and somehow you pull through and get to the other side for sure.
I love that because that was the whole premise of our book, was to show how these athletes faced that adversity, got through it, and rose above. Because we see so many people that when they're faced with that adversity, rather than rising above, they let it knock them down and they don't get back up. Can you share a story with us from your own experience where you've gone through some adversity that made you, at the moment, of course, adversity is never a joy, but in the end, especially in looking back, did it make you better? And tell us more about that.
Yeah, there's a couple that come to mind. I think I'll talk about something I talked about in the first episode of our podcast. It was in high school. I was 15 years old. I was a football quarterback, basketball point guard, and baseball shortstop. And I was a busy guy in the summer, as some of you guys might imagine listening. And we got a knock on the door one day from someone in the neighborhood that basically let us know, hey, just a heads up, I think your dad is having an affair with someone in our neighborhood. And it was tough. My parents obviously divorced not long after that. And looking back, being 15, I had a 14-year-old brother and then two sisters that were really young. And going through that and kind of getting thrusted into the man of the household role, there was good and bad to that. So I guess adversity for me was, okay, I might not be ready for this, but we got no other option. So it's time to go. And I bring my mom up all the time. My mom is a superhero. My mom wears the cape. I'm 30 now. She's still my best friend in the whole world. And I think seeing her go through that time and get through that adversity led me to kind of where I'm at now and doing what I'm doing. So
Hey, this episode of Challenger Deep Athletes Rise Above Adversity is brought to you by doTERRA, the world's leader in essential oils and wellness products. Are you ready to fuel your health and recovery like a pro? Listeners of this podcast can get 25% off all their doTERRA products and supplements. Head to the link in our show notes or go to confidentathleteprogram.com/doTERRA and start your journey to peak performance today.
Well, being 15, I'm sure that was an impactful event, as
Yeah.
it would at any age. Um, but how did that come about where it actually made you stronger and helped you rise above?
Yeah, I think I just mentioned the three positions I played, right? Quarterback, point guard, and shortstop.
Man
I
on
I
campus here.
I found my not I didn't say well, Tammy. I didn't say well, but I found myself there in those positions on the field going, okay, I'm going through this at home. I'm going through this away from the lines, without the court, whatever you may call it. But like I found myself having to be a leader there too, and I think it helped. Um, I'm obviously a man of faith. I'm not as close. I should say I wasn't as close back then to my faith as I am now. But I think getting thrusted into that leadership role helped me, and it kind of propelled me to be a college athlete and a college coach as well.
I think that's an important story that I hope a lot of our young athletes are listening to. Because as coaches, sometimes even parents, we forget that our youth, our athletes have these outside challenges or issues.
Right.
And we think, hey, just show up for the game, be ready for the game. So I think there's a lot for us to unpack here.
No, I appreciate you kind of letting me talk about that. And it was a tough time, but I think it was definitely beneficial for my future. That's for sure.
I like that you actually shared a story from high school because, as you know, you can, as a high school athlete, it's your life, right? You've got everything you think the world revolves around your sports. And then you get to college level and it's a completely different game. And, it grows from there. But I think oftentimes, there's always drama, there's always adversity in the lives of high school athletes. So what has that taught you? And especially because you're in the recruiting field now and you've been in the coaching position, what has that taught you that you can help younger athletes dealing with their adversity and being able to still keep their eye on that target?
Yeah, I really think that there's always going to be ups and downs. There's always going to be points in time where a parent gets sick or there's an injury or there's a setback in the classroom. And instead of just putting those emotions away, I lean into vulnerability and accountability, saying, hey, we're all going to go through stuff. We got to keep moving forward. We have to keep going. So I guess to answer your question, I would say when I relate with athletes, hey, I see you. I believe in you. I understand things are going on. Let's push forward. And I'll be here to help you every step of the way.
I love that. If I was an athlete coming through, you would have me signed up here.
I love that, Tammy. I love that. Thank you.
So do you, obviously you sound like you're an amazing listener for these athletes that you work with. Do you have any tools that you call on, or is it just listening and showing them that they're not alone?
I think it's such a blessing. I told you earlier, I'm going on 7 years at NCSA and IMG, and having all those resources and experience pieces with people like you, Tammy, and shout out to Heather Gage. She's another great mentor and a great friend of mine. How I got on the podcast today, they've shown me the way. They've given me bits and pieces that I've slowly made my own. So I think it's the people, honestly. It's the people I've come across. It's the mentorship, leadership, and friends and family that have kind of made me who I am today to share with these athletes. And I think those tools are so valuable, and I like to use them when I have to, try to push the right buttons when I can.
So one of the things that you mentioned at the beginning as well is now you're a mental health advocate. You do a lot around that area. Tell us how that evolved.
Yeah, it was a weird part of my life. I'm not gonna lie. It wasn't like this organic thing. Like a lot of kids, I was 22, 23. I got a job at NCSA. I moved down to Wrigleyville in Chicago, right by Wrigley Field. And I thought this was the dream. I had Cubs season tickets. I had this great job. I was staying out in restaurants and bars and enjoying the city life. And one day I just woke up and I'm like, I'm not using my gifts the right way. And honestly, I was kind of just throwing them to the side. I wasn't doing anything I should have been doing. I was spending too much time in other places and not using what I had, God-given stuff. So I got a call from one of my buddies, Luke Wheat. He was a goalkeeper at Tennessee Maryville Division III. And he said, Pat, I'm feeling that way too, man. Like I'm feeling like I have all this stuff to give and I'm not giving it. So we decided, you know what? Let's shoot episode 1 of this podcast. Nobody's going to listen. Let's do it for us. We threw an episode up and 150 people listened and thousands of people watched the clips. And I was just taken back by it, honestly. And I could not believe that people wanted to listen. They were searching for this kind of stuff. So 118 episodes later and a nonprofit later, we're still doing this. And God willing, it's an amazing blessing for myself and for my team.
One of the things that we keep mentioning, and sorry for the listeners that aren't aware of it, we should have addressed this at the beginning. Tell us what NCSA and IMG Academy are.
Yeah, so NCSA and IMG, it's been in a lack for better words, a perfect marriage. We have an awesome college recruiting network. It's the largest recruiting network in the world. We've been around for 20 plus years. It's fantastic. You have someone like IMG Academy Plus come on, 3-4 years ago now and change the game in nutrition. They changed the game in mental performance. They changed the game from a branding standpoint. You watch the NFL draft, you see all these guys going early on from IMG. And I was so hungry in the beginning to be a part of what we're doing. And it's been amazing. And Tammy obviously has been a part of our webinars for a long time at NCSA. And having people like Tammy and people from IMG Academy, wow, it's an unbelievable resource for our families and for our kids.
It is a great resource, and I appreciate all that you do. And I wanted to circle back a little bit to your podcast because I've listened to a couple of episodes, of course, Heather's episode.
Thank you very much for that.
But I love the whole premise and what you're doing. And here are two young former collegiate male athletes with the whole idea of mental health. And I really, really love that because I find it in the role I do with my one-on-one coaching, it's easy to talk to female athletes about mental health, but it's a challenge to do that with males because of the stereotype of mental health. So I love that your podcast, I think, has helped bridge that. But what message would you send to a young athlete, particularly male out there, that might be ashamed to admit, hey, there's some mental health issues going on?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is you're not alone. I remember looking in the mirror at 24, 25 and going, I have everything I've ever wanted. Why do I not want to be here anymore? And that was a crazy feeling. And I've mentioned it on the podcast. And I really leaned on my community. I leaned on my family, my fiance now, who is just my girlfriend, that poor girl at the time. She's like, I got this great guy and he's just a mess right now. So like she stayed with me. I think the message I would say for men, and I've had a lot of powerful women on that podcast as well. You're not alone. It gets better, but you can't do the same stuff every day and expect different results. And I know that's a cliche quote. I know it's been going around the last couple of years. The definition of insanity. You have to do different stuff. And that's why I'm so blessed to be here today, because I know this platform, with you guys leading it and spearheading this, you're impacting a lot of athletes. I say you're not alone. Lean on people that are in the room today.
I love that. It speaks to what Jeff and I are doing. The whole premise behind the book, kind of the stories in our book, and that we hope to bring on the podcast, evolve around what we call the circle of success. And if you have the components in this circle, you're going to be able to handle any type of adversity that you face. That circle is unity. And you've spoke to that so much about having community or people that you can rely on. Number 2 is confidence. Number 3 is right-minded focus and focusing on what you can do, focusing on the moment. At the middle of that kind of makes the circle go, is your why, and really being aligned and living your why. So you've kind of spoke to some of those other circles, but tell us about your why. Like, what makes you burn to get up in the morning and to do what you do?
Yeah. That's an easy one, but it wasn't always an easy one. It's my faith. I really dove into that over the last couple years. And like I said earlier on the podcast, I didn't use my gifts that God was giving me. I kind of disregarded God and everything that he was trying to offer me and assist with in my life. So I think my faith and my faith community of believers, it's changed my outlook on life. And I get up today, Tammy and Jeff, I get to come on here and I'm just ecstatic. Like I cannot believe God has put me in these rooms. And I told you I'm going to speak at a high school after this, and shout out Harvard High School. It's like my faith in being able to do this stuff for a living. Oh my, like, are you kidding me? Like, here we are.
Some days you like think you have the best job in America and you do it for free, right?
I swear to goodness, I would. And I mean that wholeheartedly. Getting to see the look on these athletes' faces and coaches and going to these conventions and meeting all my heroes. Like, I don't know. I just think God is so great and I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed.
Well, you mentioned heroes. So who are some of your heroes and why are they your heroes? What have you learned from them?
Yeah, I mean, oh my goodness. I could go on a laundry list right now of my heroes, but I got the chance to speak at St. Pat's High School in Chicago a couple weeks ago. And Tom Zibikowski's a Notre Dame football player, was on stage with me. He's actually the head coach at St. Pat's now. And I remember becoming a Notre Dame fan and watching Tom Zibikowski and going, can I be this guy? And now I'm sitting there on a panel with them. I was almost taken back, honestly. And going to these conventions and being there with, rest in peace, but Augie Garrido, the coach at Texas, like a couple of years back, and even my mentors at Rock Valley, these guys I've looked up to for years. And now we're on the same panels. We're at the same conventions. We're having the same impact. It's incredible. So I'd say Tom Zibikowski, shout him out. That guy is a legend. And then the baseball world, I got some great heroes too, but I won't go in that full list now. That's for sure.
Give us one baseball player,
One baseball player that I've met or just a hero, Tammy?
just a hero.
Oh my goodness. Well, they finally let my guy Sammy Sosa back in the dugout for the Cubs. And like once again, I promise you, Sammy Sosa has made his mistakes. I promise you, similar to everybody in the room and probably a lot of our listeners. But to see that guy back in the Cubs dugout at spring training, interacting with the young guys, you can't tell me God's not working through that guy.
One other question that I want to go back a little bit to conversation you and Tammy were having, because you talked about mental health with athletes and how to deal with that. I'd like your thoughts on it on the give coaches, because myself as a coach, I didn't know how to deal with it. And then a specific example was, it was something that my daughter struggled with. And my philosophy was, suck it up, get on the line, let's do some running, run it out of you. But I think that's a lot of the awareness for coaches, especially that are long-term coaches, have been doing it a long time, and they've never realized what it is or how to deal with it. What would you tell the coaches?
Yeah.
Pat,
Go ahead, Tammy.
before
Yeah.
you answer this, Pat, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You have to know Jeff's background.
Yeah,
Jeff
go
was
ahead.
in rodeo, professional rodeoer, and as tough as they come. So, he's having to learn once he had a daughter of how do I handle things now.
Jeff, I'll tell you this, and I'm going to answer your question. When I was sitting in those bars a little bit too early and a little bit too late in some of those days, I remember looking up and seeing rodeo on ESPN and some different channels. So I've seen it. I can't tell you if I remember much of it, but no, I have a lot of respect and love for what you guys and women do as well. I think on the coaching side, it's very simple. Discipline and love go hand in hand. Discipline one, love twice as hard. And you gotta know what buttons to push. And that's hard. You have to build that relationship first. You have to make them love you first to see how far you can push them. And that's it. I wish it was more complex than that. And I think with your daughter and with other athletes and coaches that I've had on the podcast and come across, it all comes back to the relationship building will tell you what you should be doing with that athlete, because it's not cookie cutter by any means.
I remember when my first year coaching, I was just handed the job, had never been an assistant, and it was like, here you go to work, Tammy. And I remember calling various coaches, hey, what's one piece of advice? And I'll never forget, tennis coach at Coastal Carolina said, they're not going to care what you know till they know that you care about them.
Amen.
And I just tried to repeat that in everything I've always done. So that seems like right up your alley there.
Tammy, you couldn't have said that better. Like, I'm not surprised in a program like that, that's how they're having success when they have those kind of values. That's beautiful.
Well, tell us a little bit more for our listeners. One, how they follow you, how they follow your show, a little bit more about your show, just where you can be found.
Yeah. So it's at the KG podcast, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We also have TikTok, which, oh my goodness, I'm 30 years old and I'm trying to run a TikTok page. Please pray for me extra on that one. At the KG podcast. You can find it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. I mean, just the guests that we've been able to have on has been such a blessing. And I've learned so much from those people, those impactful people.
Usually we like to end with like a favorite story from Challenger Deep. I know I'm part of the reason you will be having a copy of Challenger Deep, so you
Thank
haven't
you for
seen
that, by the way. Thank you.
But so I would like to instead of that hear one more story, personal or that you've seen or witnessed, um, regarding any kind of adversity and how that athlete, whether it was you or someone else, used that adversity to better themselves.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Just one.
I'm gonna give you one, and I have to go with my brother.
Okay.
I'm getting choked up trying to get through this, so I apologize. Yeah, my brother, I mentioned we went through a lot when we were kids. Split family. Mom was a superhero. My papa and grandma. My grandma is no longer with us. My papa kind of stepped in early on and was that dad role. I bring that up because my brother was a year behind me, but I was kind of thrust in that spot, and he was a three-sport athlete as well. Football quarterback, baseball pitcher, and then a guard in basketball, but way better. God-given skills. He's 6 foot. God gave him better genes than me at 5'9". I can't stand up for you, but I promise you, he had better genes. And he gets to the point in college. He's conference pitcher of the year. He goes and pitches in the Northwoods, one of the best leagues in the country for college baseball players. And he's almost at the top of the mountain, and the elbow goes. And I look back and I remember him rehabbing and going through that time. And when I saw him throw in his last game and he realized he wasn't going to play anymore, he had one of two options. One, he could be the guy that these guys in your community that go, I would have been the man if I wouldn't have got hurt. We all got those guys, and women too, of course. He could have been that guy. He chose to go with the second option, and that was to use his injury, use his, tribulations, right, to move forward. And now he's going on year 5 as a college coach. He's helped several athletes, live that dream of being a college athlete. And he's a JUCO coach. Now he's at Benedictine University Division III. And watching how his guys look at him is exactly why we do podcasts like this. Because the adversity, he could have went the other way. He could have been out of baseball. He could have been the poor me guy. Instead, he chose to help generations of athletes. And I got a lot of love for that guy. So shout out Adam O'Malley.
Awesome. Proud brother.
I am.
Absolutely.
That's for sure.
That's cool. Jeff, would your brother say the same about you?
I hope so.
Jeff, knowing you for the last 20 minutes, man, I have a feeling he would.
I'll interject with family, and I think the three of us are similar on those views, but that's part of the unity process, and having those siblings that support you. And my twin brother's my best friend in the world, and so I think we all three have that in common. I keep saying last question or last thing, but we have been lucky in that area. But I know there are a lot of athletes that struggle from the family piece. One last piece of advice for any athlete out there that doesn't have someone in their family that they can rely on or supports them or provides inspiration or motivation.
Yeah, it's a good one. Once again, you have a couple options. You can say poor me and be the victim. My dad left, or my mom passed away, or I was adopted. I don't have a good family life. It could be the whole poor me thing. Rightfully so. You've been through your story, you're going through a lot. I get it. I would challenge anybody listening today that has a tough family situation to lean into the good. Lean into the good that those people are doing, because everybody has a little bit of good, I promise you. And if it's not in your household, there's a best friend at your school, there's a coach, there's a counselor, there's an advisor, there's a mentor. Keep asking and keep telling your story until somebody gets it. Because I sit here now at 30 years old, which is incredible. And I could shout out 100 people that filled a lot of voids in my life. Keep looking for that person. It's right around the corner. If this is your sign on the podcast today, go get it.
I love it. Well, Pat, I could talk to you all day. I love your energy. I love the difference that you're making in this world. And we really appreciate you coming on here and sharing just an ounce of your wisdom. So I hope people will follow you and get even more from you.
Yeah, I got to ask one question before we wrap up, and I'll let Jeff obviously cap us. How can I help you guys? Obviously, Tammy, you're coming on our podcast here soon. I can't wait to have you on. How can I help you guys with everything that you're doing? Because I love what you guys are doing right now with this platform.
That's a great question. And, I think our overall goal, I think, is very similar to yours. And it's helping those young athletes to reach their goals, achieve their dreams, and just be better people. We all know that your athletic career comes to an end at some point, whether it's just the end of your career, an injury, or whatever it is. But there's so much as athletes you learn through the process of being an athlete that just makes you a great person. And you're walking into a high school right now, and the influence you have on them is helping to do that. And so we're all on the same page here.
I love that. We're all in this together, and having you have no idea, guys, how flattered I am to be here. Like, with your resumes and your backgrounds, I know this podcast, I know the books make such an impact already. Just keep doing this, guys. I've had a great time today. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
We've enjoyed having you here for sure. And again, for our listeners, the day we're recording this is the first birthday of Challenger Deep Athletes Rising Above Adversity. So if you don't have it, please go to jeffhagee.com/free book, get a free copy of it. We'll get that sent to you, and we'd love your feedback on it as well. So thank you. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Tammy.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Go get that book. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for joining us on Challenger Deep, Athletes Rising Above Adversity. We hope these stories inspire and equip you to tackle life's challenges head on. Don't forget to visit www.confidentathleteprogram.com/Challenger Deep to get all of our free resources from the book, your copy of our book, and access to 2 free weeks of the Confident Athlete program. Remember, in life, adversity only visits the strong. It stays forever with the weak. Let's rise above together. See you next time.